Game Jam. You probably know what it is, but if not, it's a contest, but actually not a contest, because it's not about winning, it's about having fun and learning new skills. Basically you got a theme, you got certain amount of time, and there you go, now make a game. I actually never finished any of my projects. The closest call I had was simple 2D platformer with 3 short thrown together levels. But more on that in my other video, link in the description. Well, why the last video was so long ago? I promise you I had good excuse. I had a serious accident and I broke my spine, and this is not even an exaggeration, so I needed some time to get used to, new way of living and functioning. But let's back to the topic. I decided to participate in one of those jams, specifically in Brackeys Game Jam 2024.2. I thought that thanks to Jam's restrictions I would be able to finish something at last. Jam started on Sunday, September 8th, exactly at noon in my time zone, so it was perfect to start doing something right after announcing the theme. And I forgot. I was watching Star Trek movie at the moment and I forgot to check the theme at time. But after that I checked and it was Calm Before the Storm. I immediately liked the theme, not because I had an idea, my abstract thinking is on level -1, but because it wasn't a single word and gives a lot of space for interpretation. But what surprised me, it took me only few minutes to come up with something. Recently I came across a game called Planet Crafter. A game where your goal is to terraform the planet. It's quite easy, there is no serious threat besides forgetting to drink or eat for a while, or forgetting to go inside your base to replenish oxygen. But these things are just slowing the game, not making it harder. So I decided I want to do something similar myself, but with a twist. There is a theme after all. So this is the calm part. About storm part of the game I will talk later in that video. Now let's go into development. Of course I had to start from boring stuff. That means simple getVector and move and slide function to do player movement. Plan for the game was 2D top-down view, so movement doesn't have to be advanced or fancy, especially for the game jam, and the fact that I have no experience in evaluating the speed of my work. Next, I grabbed some Kenny assets for terrain and made a tile map with prototype world that would allow me to test all the mechanics. Then I created a mining area and placed it on resource tiles. It was a quick solution for it. As I said, I didn't know my work speed, so I didn't want to think too long about how specific systems would work. Later, when I worked with tiles, I've noticed that I could just make resource tiles in different physics layers, but I've never changed that. I added an interaction label that appears when player can do something, and made a simple digging mechanic when your character was on specific mining area. Then I made first UI that shows you your current resources. After that I decided it was time for buildings. I created custom resource for them and made first 2 structures. Ore mine and power station that you will be able to place only on ore and uranium deposits. But to construct you would need to have build menu and building system, so I started working on that. First I created a simple menu and then created a system that would allow you to place buildings if you have enough resources. The game shows you if you can place something by changing modulate property and making the building blueprint red or green. At this point you could place only ore mine and you could place it anywhere, no matter the type of resource deposit. The last thing I did that day was timer. On its timeout function, it checks every placed buildings and adds proper amount of resource to the player. On second day, the first thing I did was to fix the bugs with my building system. From them, every structure could be placed on specific deposits or on empty tile depending on building type, and it was impossible to place a building on top of another building. Then I made that your blueprint would stick to the grid to make it more clear for the player where he would place something. After that I started to make other buildings like research station, oxygen generator, better levels of ore mine and power station, heat generator and console that you can interact with, and it shows you some text on the left and status of your next tech on the right. Of course, for that I needed technology system, so I made new custom resources for text and implemented it. I'm kinda happy of what I created, because thanks to my structure I was able to add a new tag in about, I don't know, a minute, if I know what I want to add. Then I created the ability to destroy the buildings, and buttons that would allow the player to choose what level of building he wants to place, if he had enough tech, of course. After that I made a simple mechanic that would stop your resource gathering from buildings if you don't have enough energy from power stations. At this point even I started to get lost in my building menu, so I added simple label that shows you the ore and energy cost of every structure. I need to stop for a moment. Now is the time where I would talk about the storm part of the game. So I want to warn you. If, for some reason, you want to play this game, pause the video, play it now. Link is in the description, you can check the itch.io page to see if it's something you would like to try. It is available on the browser and it won't take long to finish it. But why cannot I play it later, you ask? Well, this game is designed to play once. It has zero replay value, and what I do know is I will spoil the whole game for you, because if you know the twist that would happen, you would play it differently from the beginning and not how it is designed. You were warned, now let's go to the storm part. So, my idea was to cause the ice on the map melt when player increases temperature of the planet enough. First, the new discovered region will uncover a new type of resource, special ore, and for it I made a special ore mine, and later, when temperature increases more and more, ice melts and shows the new area with an alien nest, and whole game will change more into tower defense type game, where you have waves of enemies that will storm your base. Additionally, the whole main quest for the game would change from terraforming the planet to escaping from the planet. So at the end of the second day, I created an event that cause icebergs to melt, shows an alert about new message in the console and change the console text. The third day was the day when I started working on combat. First I made a gun, and then I changed the map a bit to more or less resemble proportions, shape, size and other characteristics of finished product. Then it was time to start working on enemy AI. I don't have much experience in dealing with this kind of stuff, but I've heard a thing or two. So I checked the whole A-star algorithm, but at the end decided that it would be an overkill and waste of time. And I come up with my own idea. The stupid one. I created a scanner that follows the certain path on the map, stops when it's touching any building and gives information to enemies about the target they need to follow. I think I've outdone myself when it comes to the stupidity of this idea, but if something is stupid and it works, then it's not stupid. After that, there was time to create a custom resource for the enemy. I made a simple logic for them to follow the scanner target or the player nearby, and two types of attack, melee and range. Then I added HP and death to the player. I mean, I would add a death to the game, but because it was for Game Jam, I didn't want to frustrate players in case they fail and need to start new game if they want to continue. So I just made player respawn close to the console. Of course I added health to the buildings too, and take damage function to everything that needed to. I also started working on turrets. I created two types, auto turret and mortar turret, that shoots grenades. And they worked, or at least I thought so. At this day I added higher level of towers, made an alien nest, which was just spawn node. Of course, with my knowledge with working on AI, I already started noticing bugs, so there was plenty of fixing and improving. I also created a wave system with custom number of spawning enemies and with information for the player how many enemies has left. I made that after every wave your building and the player heals. And I fixed some bugs that I noticed thanks to my first playtest. At the end of the day I added simple main menu and escape menu. The fifth day was for visuals. I came up with an idea of console type UI and started to implementing it. I added some story to my game that hopefully would lure the player into the world and mission. It was also the hardest day for me. You see, I'm not an artist, but because I work solo, I needed to work on most of my assets myself. So it was a day when I created my own fierce and not exactly pretty pixel art. After some mix of failures, I wanted to go back to programming and game design, so I added last tech, spaceship, and of course fixed some bugs. And in the meantime I made some simple animations like ore digging or console LED glowing. On 6th day I ended game loop. I made it possible to win the game and to lose, when your research station was destroyed by enemies. But as I said, because it is game for a game jam, I didn't create normal game over screen. I just added alert to the screen that it's a game over and your station is destroyed. But if you want to continue the game, you can repair it by pressing R. Somehow I also managed to convince some people to test my game. I think it's very important, because you, as a developer, you know everything about your game. And everything is so obvious to you that you play completely differently than most people on their first try. And I was right. After first playtest, we found bugs that I would never find myself because of habits that I already got after some playing. I also got some ideas for quality of life improvements. For example, one of my friends was finding it difficult to navigate through the map and was avoiding console messages because of that. So my response to it was to create this arrow that points towards the console when there is something new in there. Of course, the best solution would be a minimap, but it's a bit of overkill for this little world, and I didn't know how long it would take to come up with a suitable system for it, because I've never created a minimap and it was already day 6. Then I added some polish, like a little shader when someone is hit, and started working on sounds for the game. I've never created any sounds, and the only way of doing it I ever came across was with testing how different real-life objects would sound like with different interactions. It would be fun for sure, but I'm kinda attached to my bed at the moment, quite literally. So it is and will be impossible for me for at least next few months or even longer. So I added some effects from Kenny assets and music from this one. Then my other friend tested the game, and he noticed that turrets behave strangely, because sometimes they ignored the enemy. I must say that was a challenge. I was looking really long time for what was causing the problem, and it turned out that it was just bad... shit, I don't know the word. Indent? You know, the empty space from the beginning of the line. The solution for all the problems was just pressing tab button once. Game dev, I suppose. On the 7th day I finished main menu, tested game more, did little stuff like escape button, because on the browser escape button turns off the full screen. I added alert for the player when he is out of energy and new tech pop-up. By the way, I love how it looks, twins are awesome. Then I decided I deserved a rest and played EU4 until midnight. Last but not least, I created an itch.io page for my game. I like how intuitive it is. You can have pretty nice effects with just few simple clicks. And finally, I submitted my game, 9 hours and 27 minutes before the deadline. I named this game Terraforming Easy, besides opinions of others that it's lame and, how young people now says, cringe. I wouldn't come up with anything better anyway. That's all, I guess. I must say I loved the experience. If someone would pay me for this, I could do it 12 hours per day every day. But I'm not that lucky. Unfortunately, I have no idea what I can do next. Each page recommends me an pirate software jam, but it's in 4 months, so maybe if I'm lucky enough, I would come up with any idea for next small game. Just for practice and to start filling up my each page. Of course, obvious plan would be to finish this game into a full product, especially that I've got pretty nice feedback so far. But I'm not so sure about that. Not because I don't want to, or I don't have any ideas how to develop it further and add to it more replay value. I do, but firstly, I don't know if I'm ready for making, let's say, semi-commercial product. Semi because most probably I would leave it for free with donation option, unless it grows into something bigger. And secondly, if it won't be for Game Jam, it would be for people. So just few positive comments are not enough for it to be worthy to make. At least, that's my newbie understanding of situation. The answer is simple, I guess. I will leave it to you to decide. That's it for today. Peace.